The secret architecture of begging for love, how to stop building your own prison. Hello, Mind Explorers. Welcome. Today, we're going to unpack one of the most universal and painful feelings that exists, the sense of having to beg for love. And no, we won't be doing it from a place of blame or shame. We're going on a deep, almost archaeological journey to understand the architecture behind this behavior. I promise that by the end of this video, you'll not only see this topic in a completely new light, but you'll also have the tools to start building your relationships on much more solid foundations. Let's start with what we all recognize. The most visible surface of this architecture is the constant search for reassurance. It's that question, sometimes spoken, sometimes screamed in silence. Do you still love me? Are you sure? Did I do something wrong? It's the need for the other person to confirm your place in their life over and over again. Another brick in this facade is when we start changing who we are to fit into someone else's world. An example? Pretending you love horror movies or a genre of music you can't stand just because that person is passionate about it. It's not about sharing, it's about the fear that any difference, no matter how small, could be grounds for abandonment. And this is nothing new. Think of it as a story. For thousands of years, humans lived in tribes. Being accepted by the group wasn't an option, it was a matter of life and death. If you were cast out, your chances of surviving alone in the wild were almost zero. That primitive fear, that terror of being expelled from the clan, still lives in our brains, and it's the ancestral echo we hear when we feel we have to plead for affection. But all of this, the search for approval, changing to be liked, the fear of rejection, it's just the tip of the iceberg. These are the walls we can see, but if this is what's visible, what secret engines, what invisible foundations are moving everything beneath the surface? Let's dig deeper. Here comes the first big reveal. Much of this architecture is designed in our childhood. It's called attachment theory. Think of it as the first blueprint we learn for how relationships work. If in our early years we learned that love was unpredictable or that we had to earn it, it's very likely that as adults we'll continue to build our relationships on that flawed blueprint, creating what psychologists call an anxious attachment style. And knowing this has a double-edged power. On one hand, it's an opportunity. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, you can start working to heal it, to redraw your own blueprints. But on the other hand, it's a tool for spotting risks, what many call red flags. If you're with someone who constantly needs you to rescue them from their own insecurity and does nothing to change it, that pattern can lead to an exhausting dynamic of codependency, where one person is always taking and the other is always giving until there's nothing left. There's an invisible rule that governs many of our interactions, the rule of reciprocity. Our brain is wired to feel that if someone gives us something, we owe them something in return. In the architecture of begging for love, this becomes dangerous. Someone gives you a crumb of attention, a like at 3 a.m., and you feel obligated to give them a banquet of your time, your energy, and your peace of mind in return. You feel indebted for the bare minimum. And this is where a design flaw in our brain comes into play, confirmation bias. Basically, our brain is lazy and prefers to look for evidence of what it already believes. If you're secretly afraid of being abandoned, your brain will become a detective that only looks for clues confirming that theory, ignoring all the evidence of affection and security. The strategy to counteract this? You have to actively become a detective for the good. Keep a mental or even a written log of the positive things. Today they hugged me without me asking. Today they really listened to me. You force your brain to see the whole movie, not just the horror scenes it cherry picks. Even history has played its part. Think of courtly love from the Middle Ages. The idea of the knight who suffered and performed impossible feats for an unattainable lady. For centuries, we've been sold a romanticized version of love as a desperate struggle and a painful longing. The practical takeaway for today is that we have to actively unlearn the idea that for love to be real, it has to hurt or feel like an impossible conquest. If we can draw one single conclusion from all this, a golden rule for your life, let it be this: your value as a person is non-negotiable. It's not something that goes up or down depending on the attention you receive. It's inherent. If you feel like you're constantly auditioning to prove you deserve love, you're not in a relationship, you're in a casting call. And you are the lead role, not an extra. Understanding these mechanisms gives us power. It gives us a map, but if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because this is where the story gets really messy. Real life rarely follows the blueprints perfectly. And here begins the first major controversy, so-called tough love. Is it effective or is it destructive? One side says it's necessary to build character and get people to snap out of it. The other side argues that for someone with abandonment wounds, it's just rubbing salt in the wound. What's at stake here is fundamental. How do we genuinely help someone heal? With a push or with a hug? Now let's debunk a myth that has done us a lot of harm, the idea of the other half. The belief that there's one perfect person out there who will come and complete us. Why do we love to believe this? Because it's a very convenient fantasy. It takes the weight off the enormous responsibility we have to work on ourselves, to become a whole orange on our own. And this leads us to a paradox, an almost philosophical dilemma with no easy solution. The more desperately you seek and need love, the more you push away the possibility of finding a healthy connection. The very energy of neediness is scary, it's overwhelming. It's like trying to catch water in a clenched fist. The desperation itself prevents you from receiving the very thing you long for. And here I'm going to get a bit critical. Think about the immense social pressure to be in a relationship. Our culture often treats being single as a state of failure or a waiting room. And this pressure is the direct fuel that feeds the boiler of desperation, causing people to cling to anything just to avoid being the one left behind. Even the way we talk about these issues has changed. In the past, codependency was seen as a moral failing, almost a weakness of character. Today, the conversation has evolved. We understand it more as a dynamic, a dance between two people that often has its roots in family systems and social expectations. We've moved from looking for someone to blame to looking for understanding. Ultimately, begging for love touches on one of the deepest threads of the human condition, existential loneliness. The fact that, at the end of the day, we are alone inside our own consciousness. And that plea for affection is an attempt, sometimes chaotic and heartbreaking, to build a bridge across the unfathomable abyss that separates us from others. You've survived the chaos. You've seen how reality complicates any theory. Now it's time to look at the details that separate the curious from the truly initiated. Let's head down to the engine room. There's a concept you won't find in a quick search that is key here: limerence. It's not love. It's not a simple crush. Limerence is an involuntary, obsessive, and all-consuming mental state focused on another person. Many people who believe they are madly in love and therefore beg for attention are actually trapped in the grip of limerence. To understand what's happening in your brain, let's use a comparison. Anxiously seeking affection is driven by a dopamine reward cycle. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of pursuit and anticipation. It's what makes you repeatedly check your phone for a message. A text or a small sign of attention acts as a minor reward that keeps you engaged. Healthy love, on the other hand, runs more on oxytocin, which is like a comforting, warm feeling. It's the neurotransmitter of bonding, calm, and security. One is an unpredictable burst of excitement. The other is a safe harbor. And we have to talk about an unsung hero in this story, John Bowlby. His name is often overshadowed by more famous ones, but it was he, the father of attachment theory, who, by observing children in orphanages and hospitals, gave us the language and the science to understand this fundamental need. His work was revolutionary because it showed us that the need for connection is as vital as food or shelter. Now, an alternative, almost rebel theory that's gaining traction? It's called rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. It's been widely observed in people with ADHD. It's not just being oversensitive, it's an extreme physical and emotional pain response to perceived rejection, whether real or imagined. From this perspective, begging for love isn't just a bad psychological habit, it's a desperate attempt to avoid a pain that feels unbearable. And here's a scientific fact that is deeply counterintuitive. Studies by researchers like Kristen Neff on self-compassion show that after a mistake or rejection in a relationship, being kind and understanding with yourself is far more effective for building resilience than being tough on yourself or self-criticism. Our intuition screams, "Don't be weak." Science whispers, "Be kind to yourself." And now, the aha moment. Let's connect the dots. Imagine a three-part engine. Anxious attachment from childhood creates the core fear. Confirmation bias acts as a radar that only seeks evidence for that fear. And limerence focuses all that obsessive energy onto a single person, turning them into the one and only source of salvation or destruction. These three pieces form a self-reinforcing loop. That is the true machine at the heart of the architecture of begging for love. We've seen the engine, the blueprints, and the materials. We've reached the edge of what is known for certain. Do you dare to look towards the final frontier? The one of speculation and the big questions. Let's imagine the future, 100 years from now. Will we have therapeutic AIs offering us perfect, unconditional love, helping people heal their attachment patterns before entering human relationships? Or would this create a new and bizarre form of dependency, an addiction to perfect synthetic affection? And this is where science hits a wall and philosophy must take over. Neuroscience can explain the how of love, the chemicals, the circuits, but can it ever explain the why? Why do we yearn so deeply to merge with another consciousness, even knowing the immense pain it can cause us? This leads us to a dizzying philosophical implication. If our need for love is, at its core, a biological program to ensure the survival of the species, does true love as something transcendent really exist? Or is it perhaps the most beautiful and complex illusion evolution has ever created to make us care for and reproduce with each other? What does that mean for the purpose we find in our most sacred bonds? Going further, understanding the architecture of begging for love on an individual level could be key to the future of humanity. The same mechanisms that make us desperately seek approval from a partner are the ones that make us seek approval from our tribe, our political or national group. Healing our individual attachment wounds could be the first step toward healing the tribalism and polarization that divide us as a species. And here I leave you with the most provocative idea of all. Perhaps the ultimate goal isn't to stop needing love. Perhaps the goal is to learn to generate it from within, to become a star that emits its own light, instead of a planet waiting to reflect the light of another. The journey down the rabbit hole has ended. We've gone from a simple feeling to the deepest questions of our existence. Now, for a moment, let's look at the big picture. Remember where we started. At the beginning of the video, we talked about that familiar, painful feeling of checking your phone over and over, waiting for a response that will validate you, that will tell you that you exist to someone. We started there with a phone in hand, and we've ended up here, questioning the nature of consciousness, the future of artificial intelligence, and the purpose of humanity. We've discovered that begging for love is not a character flaw. It's an incredibly complex piece of human architecture, built with the bricks of evolution, the blueprints of our childhood, and the cement of brain chemistry. It's part of who we are. So now I ask you personally, from this whole journey, what idea, what concept, what revelation resonated with you the most or made you see your own experiences in a completely different light? Thank you for your time and your attention, truly. I know this isn't an easy topic, and I deeply appreciate you joining me. I would genuinely love to read your thoughts and your stories in the comments. If you're fascinated by these deep dives into the mysteries of the mind and the human experience, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next journey we take together. Keep questioning, keep exploring, because understanding the universe around us begins with the incredible universe we carry within. And what if the only person whose approval you truly need is already giving it to you?